Welcome everyone, episode 219 of the Talking with Francesco series. And today we'll talk about one of my favorite topics, which is, of course, developer advocacy, developer relations, what is DevRel. And I have here an expert in this topic, which is Sam Julien. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So, Sam, please introduce yourself because I really want to have a nice and long chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. So yeah, my name is Sam Julien. I am a director of developer relations. Up until recently, I was the director of DevRel for Auth0 at Okta. Now finding my next chapter. And before that, I was a full stack developer. And before that, I was in financial services. So I've been in tech for about a decade in total, and very passionate about developer relations, developer marketing, and just helping the developer community. So yeah, thrilled to be here.
Nice. And so I've also been around in tech for about 10 years. And this series, this podcast series is about also the story of the people. So I really would like to know more about how did you get into tech. I really heard a couple of spoilers of the story. So I would like to know basically like your journey, and of course even before the DevRel, what happened, why you switched to the DevRel. We see we have a similar story because I also was a full stack developer and then I switched to DevRel. And of course, if you are here in the chat, feel free to also say hi and drop any questions you want because we are here for you. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, so I'm a self-taught developer. I long ago, when I was in middle school, I had started learning HTML and CSS and that kind of thing, and always wanted to be a programmer. But at the time, there really wasn't a lot of information about becoming a developer outside of a computer science degree. So I went to college and I intended to go into computer science, and it just wasn't for me because the first couple of years were all just like math and science prereqs and not any coding at all. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess this isn't for me. And I sort of gave up on my dream because I was in Calc 2 and physics and all of that. And all I really wanted to do was program. So fast forward a few years, I was working at oh, hey, Rizal. I was working at a financial brokerage and their kind of claim to fame was coding their own trading platform. And I was talking to some of the developers there. I'd become friends with them. And I told them, like, oh, I always wanted to become a programmer, but I never got a computer science degree. And they were like only one of us has a computer science degree. You don't need a computer science degree to become a programmer, which now sounds like common sense. Like we all know that. But at that time, I had no idea. And the lead architect had never finished college and was self-taught. And so they started mentoring me and giving me resources, and I started learning C# and JavaScript because of them. And I really owe a lot of my career to those handful of developers at that trading company. And yeah, so that sort of led to eventually I was able to get my first full stack development job in Portland. Moved across the country. It was a C# and JavaScript job. That led to getting into the Angular community. I started learning Angular and got a job at a nonprofit doing leading their front end stuff. And then that's what ended up leading to DevRel, because I started getting involved with the Angular meetup in Portland, and then kind of took it over and was co-organizing it with a friend, and started doing some talks. And a friend of mine named Tara, who works for Netlify, visited our meetup, and she told me about DevRel. She was like, have you ever considered doing DevRel? And I had no idea what it was. And she was like, well, you're sort of already doing it, like doing talks and that kind of thing. And so that really sparked my curiosity. And I had, if you were around in the kind of 2015, 2016 era, Angular went through this big change of going from version 1 to version 2. And so I built this massive video course for enterprise developers on migrating from AngularJS to Angular. And that kind of launched me into the DevRel space, where I started giving talks at conferences and working on this course and everything. And so um, so that's when Auth0 reached out to me because they had a content job, basically, what was called a content engineer at the time. Um, and so that was in 2018. They reached out to me, and I ended up joining Auth0 as a content engineer, which was great. And then that led to becoming a proper dev advocate, which then led to becoming the manager of DevRel, which then led to becoming the director of DevRel through the acquisition of Okta and everything. So it's been a really wild journey of going from financial services all the way through full stack and then developer relations. But here I am. So yeah, that's the compressed version.
Nice. Yes, of course. We are trying to compress years of, of grinding and work in a few seconds. I
Yeah.
see many analogies with my stories, Sam. So first of all, I learned to how to code. I have a CS degree, but apart from that, I'm also self-taught developer because I didn't make much coding during university. I learned coding professionally using C Sharp and Unity. So this is how I got started, let's say for real. And then I started with Angular on the front end, and I was there when we had this switch from Angular JS to Angular 2 and then Angular 4. So I see many analogies in our stories. And yes, and of course about like getting introduced into developer advocacy. It's something that happened probably in 2020. I heard the first 2019, 2020. I heard about developer advocacy for the first time, and now I've been working for more almost 3 years now. So it's something that now I really like. I like the concept of working with people before just developers and tech. And of course, we're still like talking about the tech stack, tutorials, and so on. But our main focus are the people and the developer themselves. So this is what I probably like the most about developer advocacy. I would like to ask you, like, what is for you developer relations? This is a question that has to be in all the developer relations podcast and events. So we really can't skip this part. So how would you define today for you the developer relations and developer advocacy?
Yeah, I think of developer relations as the intermediary between the users of a software product and the company. And that can mean a lot of things. That can mean um, getting more developers aware of the product. It could be getting them engaged more, building with the product, and then getting that feedback from users on the product and delivering it to the rest of the company, as well as just, being good citizens in the community, representing the company and the developer community that you're a part of, and being as helpful as you can, and asking, where you can help and where you can provide better education, that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's about being the kind of the API between the developer community and the software company.
I love this. It's very similar to my definition, which is like a two-way bonding between company and developers, because we also get feedback from the companies, not just that you're just shutting out in the void, trying to get a couple more users. At least
Right.
for my role, I'm very focused on like what are developers saying about the company. I think this is very important. What do you think about the feedback that we also get from the outside?
Right. Right, exactly. Yeah, it's very important to have that two-way communication, especially if you're, testing a new feature or building new documentation or anything like that. Anything around the developer experience, you want to get feedback early and often, so that you're not just sort of building something in isolation and hoping that it does well when you launch it.
Yes, I agree. And now I would like to ask you a not easy question, which is what you think is the hardest part, or maybe the worst part of being a DevRel. Which are some parts that maybe you noticed that you or some people you interviewed about DevRel they struggle more.
Yeah, I've definitely in managing dev advocates and being a dev advocate myself, and um, talking to people through my book and everything. I think the biggest struggles that dev advocates have are one, prioritizing, knowing how to optimize for impact over activity. That's really difficult because at any given time you could be doing any number of things. You could be creating content, you could be giving a talk, there's so many different things you could be doing. And so being able to understand like the priority that you have, and what to say yes to and what to say no to, that's a big part of it. I would say the other thing that I see dev advocates struggle the most with is because it has the upside of DevRel is there's so much autonomy, but it's also easy for that to be a downside. It's really easy to burn out as a dev advocate. I call it the DevRel to burnout pipeline, where you're spinning your wheels in so many directions that if you don't impose structure and boundaries on your time and give yourself some guardrails, then it's really easy to just kind of spin out and burn out because you're just on this hamster wheel of creating content and speaking and traveling and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that in my whole career as a developer advocate, I never heard me or another developer advocate says like, "Oh, I'm so bored." Like it's always the opposite. I never heard not a
No,
single time about this job that maybe in some other jobs you can be repetitive. It's the opposite. Like a lot of context with switching. I was preparing this live stream while in a space about developer advocacy. After this live stream, probably I joined another space, and also in the meanwhile, I was preparing upcoming events, of course, for the company. So it's probably not for everyone. For example, this context switching, I think it's one of the things that I don't know, you can be good. I think I'm good at this, but some people, for example, they hate it, and I think it's one of the reasons why some people, for example, they really they struggle a lot while being a developer advocates. There are too many things happening at the same time because events they need to be organized weeks, months before. You can't just say now I'm doing this, and of course, no, and of course, when you're organizing events, you need get feedback from people. Now I can't anymore. You need to get the informations, the link, then you need to promote it. So it's a process that I tried, for example, to optimize as much as possible. But some things are out of your control, right? So you
right.
try basically to to complete the task like a CPU. You try to complete all the tasks, but sometimes you need to stop because you need to hear a feedback from someone. But
Yeah, yeah.
it is.
Yeah, I was literally just on a call yesterday with a dev advocate that I've been helping for a couple of years, and we were just talking about the context switching struggle, and I was helping with giving some tips about when you get to the end of a time block, do a brain dump in your project notes of like exactly where you're at and what the next step is and any unanswered questions you have and everything, so you can kind of like close that process in your brain out and move on to the next thing. But yeah, it's a big struggle, the context switching, and it's also really important to try to automate and systematize whatever you can, because you're going to have all these repetitive processes of like when you have an event and when you're creating content, like the more you can build yourself checklists and automations and that kind of thing to reduce that mental load of admin work, the better off you'll be.
Yes, thank you, Sam. Now I'd like to ask you and discuss maybe a couple of minutes about a book you wrote. Like you wrote a book which is called "Getting Started in the Vrel." I'll put the link
Yes.
here. So I'd like to know, of course, you should check the book, but here today I would like also to know more about like the process of writing this book because there is not much content about the Vrel. Do you agree? There's not much content, like either written or video content. There is something, but like, how has been your experience in writing this book? What inspired you to create this? So I would like to know some behind the scenes on the process of creation because I know that it's not easy. And I think I copy pasted 2 times. Yeah.
It's okay. I just oh no. Yeah, so this book actually was inspired by, at the time I was running the Auth0 Ambassadors program, which was a program where folks who were passionate about identity and security and the Auth0 product could get in and kind of learn to do DevRel by way of Auth0. And so I was um, trying to find training materials for them basically, and teach them about, sort of the basics of DevRel. And I realized like not much existed, like you said, like there wasn't a ton of content out there. And so that actually is what inspired me to write that book, because I was sort of like, I need to write like a small handbook to give to people like the ambassadors, to kind of just give them a primer on what DevRel is. And so I I happened to be, so I'm friends with Joe Praveet, who I think at the time he was working for Facebook, but he did this 2 week product challenge basically, where you joined a little group and you committed to shipping something in a couple of weeks. And um, and so I used that as an excuse to write this book. I already had a lot of the content in my notes and in my head because I wanted to write it for the Auth0 ambassadors, the people in that program. And so I just busted it out in a couple of weeks after thinking about it for months and months and months, thanks to Joe's little public accountability challenge. And so I learned a lot of lessons in writing it, because I wrote it in a tool called Ulysses, which later I switched for my next book. I wrote in a tool called Scrivener, which is more of a writing book. So I wrote it in Markdown, and hired someone off of Fiverr to do the illustration and that kind of thing. And it was a great learning process to write it, and it's been really successful. Like I think it's at over 600 copies, plus the many that I've given away. And it's been really cool because a lot of people have come up to me, at conferences and things like that, and told me that my book has really helped them get into the field, either um, independently or through a company. And part of the reason I wrote it was that I find that a lot of people want to do developer relations, and they think that that means that they have to actually get a full-time job as a developer advocate. But a lot of the things that you are interested in with developer relations, you can do at your current job or on the side, and you can see if you like it and if you want to do it full time. It doesn't necessarily require a full-time career switch, but if you want to switch to a full-time job, you can. And so this book addresses both of those things. So it gives you a really practical way of just like getting started, and digging into what developer relations is and how to do it.
Nice, that's great, and I think this is exactly what happens, with sometimes with side projects or some other projects in as a developer. So you start, like I do something very small, like this handbook, and then it's turned out into be something else and more, let's say, into details. And yes, I also, for example, some notes. So I'm planning to at some point also to release something, but it's great that you created like this. Written, you can see like testimonial, like many things that happen from your personal and direct experience. This I think this can help. And as you say, for example, 2 weeks ago, I tried to explain my friends what developer advocacy is, but sometimes it's hard even to other people who are like engineers and so on. So not my grandma, sorry grandma, but it's not easy to explain what we do to people who are even engineers. It's a bit hard because it's a role that involves so many things, so many skills. And we have one question by Abhishek, which is a classic, I would say. Does a developer advocate code?
Yes, absolutely. Developer advocate should be coding daily, um, building, whether that's building sample apps or tutorials, or helping users with integrations, or yeah, developer advocate should be reading and writing code every day, one way or another, even if it's writing code for a talk or something like that. It's definitely, you're still deeply involved in coding.
Yes. So, and of course, I think I agree in some extent. I think it depends on the role that you have, of course, because if we talk about developer advocate, the role, I think you are right. If we talk about developer relations, there are also, I don't know, some community managers. In that case, probably they don't
Sure.
need to code much. For example, in my role now, I am a full full DevRel mode, because I have like 25, 26 engineers, but I'm the only developer advocate, I would say,
Right.
in a small team. So in that case, probably they need more me on the community aspect, which is fine. I'll say I still can code Rust during the weekends, no worries. But I think that is a skill that we should not be scared, and we should, coding is like something that it's like, playing the guitar. Like if we stop for like an extended amount of time, we might need some time to get back on track. Like, if you're a developer, you know what I'm talking about, like getting sharp, understanding how things work. So I would recommend absolutely to code, either like in during the weekends. Of course, be careful about your work life balance, but it's something that we might or not do for the company. But I think it's a part. Otherwise, there not be developer in the name of the title. Of course, everyone. Hey, Sophia,
Yeah.
how are you? Sophia is also
Yeah.
new in developer advocacy, and she's also doing great things. I would like to make more events with her. And Sam, I saw that recently, I don't know at what point you are, you also started working on a course, which is a video course, a course about DevRel. So I would like to know more about this, and what's the status. But I think it's something that happened like while we tried to arrange this interview. So you should really update me. You sent me some links and I will share it. But I would like to know
Yeah.
more about this.
Yeah, so I'm building a course called Growing in Developer Relations as really the sequel to getting started in DevRel, um, which is basically taking all of my experience in managing and mentoring DevRel dev advocates and community managers and that kind of thing, and distilling it into a handful of topics that I just see over and over again. So one of the sections is on the career path, the skills that you need to grow in your career. I found that there's a decent amount of content on how to become a developer advocate, and there's a decent amount of content about how to do the different tasks in developer advocacy, like creating videos or building conference talks or things like that. But there's not a lot of content out there about how to be good at being a developer advocate and how to grow in a career for developer advocacy, and whether that means you want to become a high level individual contributor, a staff or a principal, or whether you want to go into management, become a manager, a director, a VP, or something like that. And so that's why I'm building this course. So I'm covering the career path. I'm covering the next big topic that people struggle with is measuring your impact on the business and on the community. So a whole section on metrics and reporting and that kind of thing, and then a whole section on the time management and productivity and that kind of thing. I had developed this system. I wrote a book called Guide to Tiny Experiments that's all about like how to ship quickly, and I'll paste the link in a second, but how to ship quickly and everything. And what I ended up doing was applying that in my management style with my teams, basically a process where you ship quickly and get feedback and iterate and that kind of thing. And so that section of the course will be about that, things like time blocking and context switching and building systems for yourself and that kind of thing. So I've got a lot of the material outlined. If you want to get updates, you can join at that link. I'm sending out updates on the course progress. I'm also putting the finishing touches on an email course about maximizing your impact as a developer advocate. So if you sign up at that link, you'll get that when I ship that. That should be in the next week or so that I finish that up and ship it. It'll be a 5-day email course covering the topics of like optimizing for impact and shipping quickly and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I'm really excited. It's something I've been meaning to do for a long time and just haven't had the time. And so now I've got a little bit of a window to work on it.
Yes, that's great, and I think that you're doing this in a real DevRel style, so building a bit in public, sharing something. So this is, it's more like a mindset, this mindset of like keeping sharing what you are currently working on, also getting some feedback, because if you're sharing, some small parts of the whole course, you might also get some improvements. Some you can get some, if something was like, maybe you can improve some parts, or like make them longer. So it's great, really. Best of luck. Let me know if when this will be out. Of course. Also curious now. I'm now curious about also the book. My problem is that it's hard for me to get like updates from everyone, because I'm also doing my own stuff. So probably I think
Yeah.
that you have the same issue. This is the reason why we have this podcast, so I can like get some updates. We have this window of like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. We can like just be and you, so I can like
Yeah.
understand what my friends, what people that I'm connected with are currently
Yeah.
working on. But best of luck. It's I think it's a great idea, and I think it can help many people, because I get the same questions like over and over again, especially about the grow. What should I do now? Am I doing something wrong? And it's very hard also to try to, let's say, fit them all in one place, because I think it's a real there is a this experience that can change basically on the company that you work for. But
Hmm.
I think there are some guidelines that can kindly work in on different places. Chris, how are you?
Exactly. That's what I think is one of the things that is so interesting about DevRel, is that it is a bit of a chameleon based on the company you're working for, the market you're in, the size of the company that you're at, the stage that you're at. DevRel at an early stage startup is vastly different than DevRel at a publicly traded company. But at the same time, there are these like frameworks and common themes, around how to grow in your career. For example, focusing on things that are collaborative, or focusing on projects where you can take ownership and have more visibility in the company. Like there are some common frameworks in how you measure and how you manage your time and that kind of thing, that I think are that hold true, no matter where you're at. Even if the shape of the exact balance of what types of activities you're doing looks different, there's definitely some common themes when you're working in DevRel.
Nice, nice. Thank you. I have one question, like without saying names, how can you say if someone is a good developer advocate or not? How can you say, like, if you think, because of course we work in this environment, we have many people, and of course by doing all these events, or sometimes we have a certain tone of voice. What do you think makes like a developer advocate a good or a bad developer advocate from your experience?
That's a really great question, because I think there's there's different. It depends what angle you're looking at. I think one thing that's very certain is that DevRel is a very small world. It's a very like small community, and so your reputation is absolutely priceless. Like being able to just do what you say you're going to do, and be honest and respectful of people and everything. That's sort of like table stakes in DevRel, because it's such a small community that it's inevitable that you're going to work with someone or collaborate with someone again at some point in the future. So that's part of it. Um, and also the reputation in their technical community as somebody who's helpful and doing a good job and that kind of thing. But then there's also the business side of it too. I mean, what makes a good developer advocate is not only like the number of followers you have, or how viral your content goes or things like that. It's really, is that converting into business impact? Are you getting recognition at your job as somebody who's making an impact on the business? And that is not always visible. And so it's important to remember in developer relations that like it's easy to get caught up in sort of the vanity metrics of number of followers, or number of views you're getting, but that doesn't always tell the whole story. I've seen many examples of content with low views that actually convert really well to account signups, or user feedback or things like that. And so, um, are you getting good feedback from the community, from the company? That's what makes a great dev advocate. Otherwise you're kind of more of an influencer. Um, so yeah, that's my hot take.
I love this, and I think that some people confuse the developer advocacy with with being an influencer. I think they are
Hmm.
like the opposite things. So you can have, of course, social media presence, but developer advocacy, I think, is tied to a company building their strategy. So it's basically the opposite of what influencer does. I'm saying this without any offense of doing like paid partnership with companies, but I think a developer advocacy, it's about making a strategy. That's the big difference.
Yes.
And there are
Yes.
also big like tech influencers that can make great videos, great content, but they get the strategy from the outside. So they basically create, produce some content, they distribute from their cool channels, but that's it. A developer
Right.
advocate can also have just 1,000 followers, 50, 10, 100 followers, but they can still do a great job. And I met some of them. It's not about that like social media presence, which of course it's a part of your DevRel thing. I don't know. You need to handle probably some developer advocate, they handle the social media accounts, though. So maybe depending on the role, they might be, I don't know, being a good fit. I would say I'm handling the
Right.
Twitter handle of the daily dev, of course, but
Hmm.
it's something else. And we have a question by Sophia. Maybe it's not an easy one, but let's try. How do you deal to avoid burnout all the time? DevRel is a large umbrella, very, very large umbrella. It's a tent.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll tell you that I found the answer by burning out. So I learned by making a lot of mistakes, and so um, what I learned though, especially because once I was then managing developer advocates and managing teams of developer advocates, I was a lot more passionate about preventing them from burning out than I was from preventing me from burning out. Um, and so there's a couple of things. One is getting really clear on your priorities, knowing, like, getting really good at just ruthlessly prioritizing, knowing what's my North Star. Am I trying to drive more awareness? Am I trying to drive more engagement? Am I trying to drive account signups or something like that? And then being able to say no to things that don't move the needle on that. It's very easy in DevRel to get caught up in just like reactive mode of like, oh, this person just asked me a question, I have to respond right away. And really like taking a step back and saying like, okay, can this thing wait a couple of hours while I finish this higher priority thing? And everything you say yes to comes at a cost of something else that's not going to happen. You only have a finite amount of time and energy. And so getting really good at uh, saying yes to the things that are high priority, saying no to the things that aren't. That's a big part of it. That is a skill that you have to develop over time, because you have to develop good judgment, and that just takes time on the court of like learning, testing, shipping, getting feedback, and over time you'll start to develop this judgment of like, I remember last time that was a big sink of time and we didn't actually get much return from it, so we're just not going to start that. Sometimes you have to be able to end things. I've had to like sunset entire programs because we learned like, hey, the time versus value of this is not good, and we're just spending a lot of time on this and not getting results. We need to end this entire program. So that's a big part of it. And then I think the flip side of that is you know building in some systems throughout your day and your week of like reviewing what you're working on, keeping good notes on your projects, that kind of thing, to be really aware of your capacity and your like mental and emotional capacity. Take a lot of time off when you can. Regularly take like 4 days off once a quarter or something like that. Don't be afraid of using your PTO. You forget that in DevRel, um, often you're doing things like working 72 hours straight, because if you go to a conference, you're basically on the clock all day and all night. Maybe you get 6 hours of sleep or something, but then you're up at 7 in the morning putting your booth together.
6 if you're
Um,
lucky.
Yeah, 6 if you're lucky. I mean, nowadays I can't hang with all the younger folks partying all night, but yeah, no, you have to make sure that you're taking the time. DevRel is one of those fields that comes in like feast or famine. You're sort of like have these like high energy times, and you need to make sure that you plan time off accordingly. So yeah, that's a long list, but hopefully some of that is helpful, and I'm always happy to chat more about that.
Yeah, that was great, Sam. And I'm following your tip. And for example, in 3 weeks, I'll go to Japan 2 weeks with my girlfriend just to
Nice.
enjoy. So for example, this is I want to follow your tips because I think that this can be very important. And now, yeah, jokes aside, I think what helped me a lot is to have like core activities that I do
Yes.
every day, basically. So because if I'll stay for the company 8 hours a day on Twitter, after 3 days I would just go crazy because I say I don't can see the results, and I feel that I'm doing nothing. Maybe I'm doing something, but I can't measure my job just by staying so many hours on the company Twitter account, for example. So I like, for example, like to organizing the events, organizing like three events today, and this makes me feel okay. Now I'm doing something, so I need to have
Hmm.
dedicate some time. Usually, it's the very early morning. The first tasks that I do that are something at least a bit tangible. Otherwise, it becomes very hard. Like, and I thought that like being a developer was something not tangible because you create software, but at least you create a PR. At least you create some, you do some tickets, so at least you have something to prove. In developer advocacy, sometimes I say, okay, we got like, okay, this video got 100,000 views, amazing, but there is a lot of work behind that, or sometimes we do some launches.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say like in one day, like I want to end my day like saying, okay, at least I did organizing this and this, and then the rest of the time it's all about engaging. Someone might say that I'm still working even now because I'm talking about developer advocacy. So sometimes
Yeah.
there is this thought. Yes.
And
If
it
you have
can
any
be a
other,
big.
sorry.
I was just going to say, I've observed, in managing people and everything, it is a big shift when you go from like a full stack developer job to a developer advocacy job. It's really easy to fall into kind of the shipping trap, because as an engineer, you're used to measuring your success by shipping features, shipping bugs, right? And so then you get into DevRel, and you immediately kind of apply that same mindset and think, okay, well, I just need to ship things. So I'm going to ship all this content, ship all these videos. And while that is good, you don't get the same. The measuring that is a lot more difficult, and so you start finding yourself like, oh, I'm doing all of these things, and I'm not exactly sure why I'm doing them, or like whether I should be doing them. And that's when you start to like run into the path to burnout and that kind of thing, where you need to pull back and like you said earlier, like have more of a strategic mindset, and apply some boundaries to your time.
Yes, and I think now that we also work remotely, these boundaries tends to like disappear, but they still should be there. I think it's very important. At some point, we should turn off the notifications on Slack. Otherwise, we feel that I'm currently like working 24/7. Nice. We have one more question. Well, Sophia, this makes me very happy because we are doing this event also because we want them engaging, especially with Sophia that just became a developer advocate. So, work life balance and personal branding, especially on social, because we should understand that a personal account is not like by working for a company, and I think that the dev this is super clear. They don't like buy your account and you just retweet everything about the company. I need
Right.
to say something that they left me very free to do this, and this is especially one of the reasons why I switched the company, because the company felt like that like I should retweet everything for the company. No, I think
Yep.
that we should give the people. I think that like I don't know, for usually forcing someone creates the opposite result. Probably retweeting more stuff now on the deleted account because they don't ask this by contract. Of course, I want to
Yep.
support them, but what do you think about this? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm definitely, I don't know if you've seen the like millennial manager TikToks, but I'm definitely one of those people where I am very hardcore about work-life balance and taking time off and that kind of thing. So I I expect my people to work the 40 hours a week that I'm allotted, and so I don't expect them to be on social promoting company stuff after if they're not working. I think I'm also a fan of like if I'm not traveling for work, I don't have my email or my Slack on my phone. I don't check things at night. The personal branding that that's up to you. If you want to spend more time on social and that kind of thing in the evenings and on weekends, like that's up to you. But the work part, I have heard of companies who kind of want to own your personal social accounts and want you to be posting things at certain times. And I think that, like you said, I mean, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I've also learned with developer advocates, like um not everybody, it's pretty rare to come across someone who's like a generalist who's good at everything. I mean, I would say you're one of those people. You're good at the content and the social and like all of that stuff. But it's pretty rare. Like most dev advocates have like a niche that they really like. Like they either really like to write, or they really like to build community on social or on Discord or things like that, or they really like to speak. Maybe they do two of those things. But by and large, like forcing somebody to be on social who hates being on social is a bad idea, or forcing somebody to write who hates to write is a bad idea. You can't expect a developer advocate to do everything all the time. That's just not realistic. And so I think part of that work-life balance is like, one, giving people the freedom to only work for the number of hours they're supposed to work, which is very hard in DevRel. And then also, yeah, letting them, if they want to build personal brand on social, that's great. If they, it's nice to retweet things from the company and use your, like, I think what a lot of dev advocates miss is that they can build their personal brand by way of their company, because their company is inherently, until you reach a critical threshold of 100,000 followers or something, likely your company is more popular than you are. Just like they're going to have a bigger reach because they're going to have customers and they're going to have users and that kind of thing. And so you can use your job to help you grow your own brand in that way. But definitely a fan of having boundaries in the evenings and on weekends, or whatever you prefer, whatever maybe you work vampire hours and take your mornings off. Like that's also fine.
Yes, we have Atarva, big fan of Atarva, is working very hard on his YouTube channel. This guy will be famous in a couple of in some months, you will see. When I was at my DevRel role, my thing was technical writing a lot more than other DevRel responsibility, which is fine. You're correct about dev advocates; they have different niches. This is
Yeah.
usually what I think it's the best, I would say. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Nice.
talked to so many startups that are like, oh, yeah, we're looking for a dev advocate, and they're going to write our technical documentation, and they're going to write guides, and they're going to make videos, and they're going to go to conferences. And I'm like, you're not hiring a dev advocate, you're hiring an entire team of people. Like that's not, you can't do that with one person, I promise.
Yes, this sounds like my job. No, I'm joking. It's no, and I no jokes aside. We have not a big team, the lead dev, but for example, there is a super talented person about who does marketing. So at least we have like someone who is in charge of marketing, and I am in charge of the whole DevRel things. For example, I don't like to do marketing activities. I think this clashes with some of my things. Of course, I did that in the past, but for example, we have this very functional, let's say, MVP of like a DevRel team that for now it's working very, very well. Nice. Nice. Before you become a DevRel, did you know your niche, or you explored to know your niche? So basically, like what you were focused on. I don't know if you're talking about like from a technical perspective, Sofia.
My guess is she probably means about the like writing versus speaking versus that kind of thing, but definitely clarify
Okay,
in the
as a
chat.
personal brand. Okay.
But I would say so. Me personally, I'm a little bit of an oddball because I was writing. I've been writing since I was a little kid, and I've been a performer for a long time and stuff. So I kind of already knew that writing and speaking were my thing. But I would say from managing other people, uh, definitely exploring is a good way to go. Like if you don't already know, or I can say one thing that I explored was during the COVID lockdowns, I was exploring streaming and I found that I really hate it. I'm not I'm not good. I mean, things like this aside, but like doing the solo streaming, that is not my niche at all. I don't like being alone on camera. It's not for me. I always encourage dev advocates to explore and like try different things. And if you don't like something, there's always that part in the beginning where in the beginning you're gonna suck at something new, and so you might need to give it a little bit of time before you like it. But you definitely shouldn't be afraid to explore and figure out what you like or don't like in the dev advocacy skill set.
Yeah, I like this. I like this idea of focusing on something. And you say, like, for example, I try to do many things, but from my experience, when I've been more focused on fewer things, YouTube is a classical example of this. I had better results, and
Yeah,
maybe maybe from the outside you see like that I am doing like different things, many different things, but for example now I'm very focused on YouTube, so I plan the live streams, I plan the content. This is from a personal perspective, so, and this works very well. And for example,
yeah,
before I was just focused on Twitter or on one platform, so this worked very well, and this allowed me. So from the outside maybe you see, okay, Francesco is also posting on Instagram, but that's basically, it's a second priority. So for me, it's
right.
more from a mental organization. So, and that's it. And of course, the repost on Instagram gets more views than on to YouTube, but that's another story.
Yeah,
From
yeah,
my personal perspective, I'm way more focused on fewer things that you can say from the outside, and it's working very well for me, I have to say.
yeah. No, agreed. Yeah, I really like. It's funny because I don't like streaming, but I do love making video courses. I've done a lot of courses for Egghead and some other places, and then my own courses, and that medium just like works for me for whatever reason. And being on stage works for me, but like virtual talks and streaming and that kind of thing are tough for me when it's not in an interview format. Interview format like this is fun, but yeah,
Yeah, this is a podcast format. And for example, here, Sophia is saying, like, for example, he has been writing for almost 2 years, but lately I've been feeling it's tiring and trying to get it back. Starting trying video content, like video interviews, and it has been amazing. And it's absolutely fine, I think. So
yeah,
having I think finding our format, I made a tweet about this a couple of days ago, like finding your format. I think that is, I don't know, our final goal. Like and if you try to think about, of course, talking about tech, because usually we talk about tech, the most successful people, they have a very successful format, like fileship
hmm
as an example, 100 seconds. So
hmm
if you find a good format that works for you, Primage, Theo, other people like that, they have a format that works for them, so they can replicate this format over and over again, changing something. So if probably, Sophia, if you find a good format, for example, now I have these, I call them like burger live streams, because not because I eat a burger on a live stream, but because I have an intro and an outro, which is very chilled, and in the middle, I basically record the video in one go. So, for example, this is a format that is working very well for me. It's also makes me accountable. And yes, so yes, thank you so much, Sophia, of course, for your words and also your experience. If you are here in the chat, and yes, Sam, let's start to wrap up this our first collaboration. I don't know if we forgot anything, but we talk about the book, the upcoming course. Anything else that you would like to discuss about developer relations, and then we can wrap up.
No, I think we covered it. I also, at my website, I also read a newsletter called Developer Micro Skills, which are just like really practical ways of improving as a developer and developer advocate. So definitely hop on that for more stuff like this. It's not specifically about DevRel, but there's a couple thousand people on there that are keen to learn this kind of thing. So you can find that just at my website. But um, Other than that, no, I think we covered a lot of ground here, and it's been really great to hear all the questions and comments and everything.
Yes, and of course I'm here. Let's share again this link. So Sam Julien, so we can you can check it out. Maybe we can end with a final question about what do you think is something that makes a developer advocate to grow in their career. Of course, maybe you should check the whole course, but maybe a sneak peek of something that you think that you know you understand that you leveled up. So what do you think that basically makes it's one element on something that can really make you grow as a devrel?
I would say one of the things is really finding another team in your company that you can collaborate with, so that you're demonstrating the value of DevRel beyond just what you're doing. So that could be like the product marketing team, that could be like pre-sales enablement, that could be the strategic events folks. Like, find someone in your company, and usually, it's gonna take some trial and error. I've had some teams where it sounded like a great idea in theory, and then when we tried to collaborate on something, it just didn't work for whatever reason, or maybe the personalities didn't like work together. But keep trying until you find like a spark with somebody, that you can do some work together. I think one thing that dev advocates really underestimate is the value of understanding the developer persona. There's a lot of business people, like product marketers and marketing people and sales and people like that, who really want to understand how developers think and what they want and that kind of thing. And you have a lot of value and insight into that you can provide. And so finding a way to expand beyond just the work that your DevRel team is doing and really impact the broader company, that's a really great way to advance your career and grow in your skill set.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I think also this podcast itself, it's a proof because we didn't schedule any scripted much, but we still provided like a lot of natural content, which is great. I think we both leveled up as a developer advocate when you can like sustain like a discussion and these questions. So it's I think this is a great sign. But so I was sure that this would have been like smooth anyway because there is so much we can talk about. We are already close to 50 minutes, so it has been a while. And Sam, would you like to leave maybe final message to people who are interested into DevRel, and then we can close this one. Really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming. People are really happy. We have one random question, which is pizza or burger. Be careful about your answer.
Man, that's really tough. I think, and I used to live in Portland, which is like home to both. I think I'm gonna go pizza.
Okay, you
I,
can stay. Okay, so you can stay.
yeah, I
Sam,
love a good
go.
pizza for sure. Yeah, no,
Okay.
this was great. It was great to talk to everybody, and do feel free to reach out if you have questions. If there's anything I can help, I'm really passionate about helping new developer advocates get in and get better and make an impact and that kind of thing. So happy to help with everybody, and yeah, it was great to chat.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so
Glad I
much,
passed the
Sam.
vibe check.
Yeah, of course, of course, of course. So it's no, it's fun. I think that there is also this part, and now, of course, jokes aside, but I think it's important also to try to enjoy some parts. I think that one of the parts that I really like about the Red Center, sometimes I'm really enjoying. For example, I do like events for the
Yeah,
devs, so sometimes I wonder like why I get paid. I'm joking, of course, but like it's interesting like to find like entertaining and interesting like this part of the job. I think it is
yeah,
it's a job that we should enjoy because we are in contact with people. We're basically working with people, so having some fun, even for some a bit off topic things, sometimes can be even the best thing. So yes, yes. So we should. So thank you so much, Sam, for coming today. Really, really enjoyed this conversation with you. I'll keep. I want to get more updates on everything that you are creating for, and then probably yes, creating content about DevRel while also doing DevRel, it's probably very very time consuming, but I'm sure that you will create a great course because of your great experience. Really, best of luck. Let's keep in touch. We can do should do some spaces. I don't know if you're used to spaces and other
Yeah, I would
stuff,
love
but
to.
that's a
Yeah.
super easy format to try it out. Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Awesome.
I
Thanks so
left all
much,
the links
everybody.
in the description. Sorry, Sam. Sorry.
No, no, I was just saying thanks so much. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Thank you so much, everyone. And yes, let's keep in touch. We have also another developer advocate next week, Daniel from We Are Developers, and also more live streams on Friday and Saturday. So a lot of stuff. High region issue. Yes, we are working on that. We get one extra step during this live stream. So I have a 98.2. Probably I will not sleep tonight because I really can't miss this up. I don't know. I'll decide. I'll decide later. Probably will watch a film, a movie with my girlfriend, just checking out from time to time. Thank you so much, Sam. And yes, see you around and best of luck. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.